Welcome back to Arsenal Pass Time of the Round, EP08. I'm joined by Hayden Dale. I can't be expected to roast this guy every week. It's way too creatively demanding, so I'm just going to introduce you by your christened name.
Oh, okay, sure. I was waiting in anticipation, but what a letdown. Okay.
Yeah. I'm sure you get that one a lot. But anyway, Hayden, I know there was a very big kind of big experiment from Legendary Studios in terms of putting out gameplay that ended quite recently, the Dev-astation as they call it. So, Hayden, how devastated were you when this ended? Tell me.
Well, first of all, I like the name. I think that was one of my favorite things about Dev-astation. I thought it was a good play on words there. Yeah, I mean, it wrapped up just this week. They had the final spoiler. If you haven't seen it, go watch it now before I start talking about it. But it was Prism versus Chain. So I guess a bit of a representation of the current meta, new heroes in there. I guess that was cool to see the new heroes do well. Yeah, so if you aren't familiar with it, if you haven't seen the Dev-astation series by LSS, it's on the Fab TCG YouTube. Go check it out. There's some really good games in there. All 10 heroes are played. All 10 of the classic heroes are played. 12 of the classic heroes are played. So yeah, me pretending like 2 of the heroes don't exist.
No Cavdine though.
Unfortunately, not yet. So all 12 of the adult heroes are played. And classic constructed. Some heroes unfortunately only got to see it once. I did like the idea of Dev-astation. I think it's quite a cool thing for LSS to do. There's definitely some, I guess for me, some like pros and cons, or some pluses and negatives of what came out of this, which I want to talk about as well and get your thoughts on as well, Brendan. But just kind of generally, I'm glad that we got to see each of the 12 heroes. I wish we got to see them maybe more than once for some heroes, and some heroes less than 4 times. But as the format, I guess, I think maybe in the future I'd love to see more things kind of in this vein, but maybe in a slightly different format, which allows some of these heroes to, maybe drop into like a loser's bracket or get a ripper charge, get the opportunity to, maybe they're up against a really tough matchup for them, and we get to see them. I think there's a lot of hype around for Jacob having Bravo, I only got to play 1 match and a little bit of a disappointment. So things like that, where maybe you get to see them get played again. So yeah, I just had a few kind of thoughts the other day about the Dev-astation, and I guess I wanted to talk about just the matchups first. So really started with Jason, so lead developer Jason coming through with the Viserai Sonata deck, which I thought was quite a cool interaction. A lot of people knew about the Skeleta Sonata interaction. Like, it wasn't, it was pretty plain to see. Everyone kind of knew about that, but really cool to see Jason enact that in the way that the devs have been testing it, I guess, with cards like Exude Confidence, Rouse the Ancients to set up these big turns. So yeah, quite nice to see some stuff that maybe players hadn't thought about. But I also thought on the flip side of that, that we saw a lot of stuff that was pretty copy paste that we've kind of seen. The Azalea list was very stock standard, a redline list. The cards of control deck was very very stock standard. The Dorinthia list was quite a sort of pretty standard list we'd seen. So yeah, it's kind of what I thought about the matchups and the decks. What did you kind of think of what you saw of it, Brendan, in terms of the deck lists you saw and what the devs had to come up with?
I liked Viserai. Period. So yeah, I liked the Viserai deck. I thought that it was like a tuned list. It looked pretty good.
Yeah.
It looked like we were actually being given something with that list. The others, no. I was quite disappointed in things like Kano, and Azalea. And it's a lot to ask, right? And it's honestly almost an impossible ask. Be like, hey, take these heroes that are not played and give us lists that are, better than what people have been failing to create for almost, in some cases, a year. So that's a big ask for sure. But I definitely I had pretty high hopes for the Kano list, and I thought it ended up looking very, very standard. Which that list definitely struggles in this meta. Does it? Yeah, I mean, just really tough into Chain, who's just going to present a ton of damage, and then the Prism is just woof. I mean, Prism being printed looked like Kano was just going to have a tough time. But yeah, I mean, in terms of the gameplay, logistically, it makes a lot of sense, right? Like, you do this draft, and then the heroes get knocked out, but you get to see your favorite player multiple times, maybe not your favorite hero. I was slightly concerned, but tried to not focus too much on it. When I saw the pick order just represent the meta perfectly in like week 2 of Monarch or wherever when it came out, so pretty early, looked pretty spot on to what we were already playing with, which is basically where we're ending up right now. And this meta in particular was a meta that I really wanted to be wrong about because we are playing. I mean, it's okay for us to say right now, but we are playing the deck that we were playing in week 0 and week 1, and it's very, very close to that list. And yeah, I didn't want that to be true, but it does look like that list is quite dominant. And just, I mean, screw the list, right? It's just the hero is really, really good. Like Chain is just absolutely nuts, and that's what we saw. I mean, Chain pulled out. I know we said no spoilers, so.
No, spoiler away. If people haven't seen it by now, then pause it and go watch it.
We saw Chain just win in Chain fashion too, which I respect. That I respect that they probably only did one take on these and just went ahead and uploaded it. But I mean, we saw like a pretty big non-game in the Azalea, and then the finals also a bit of a rollout off the top, which is, I mean, that's nobody's fault, but that's pretty format defining, and I think that it's an accurate representation. But yeah, I don't know. It's like I just didn't want Chain to win. I wanted there to be something that beat Chain, and I don't think we got it.
Yeah, I was definitely hoping to see some of the other heroes, I guess, get a chance at least, or heroes that maybe Alex just thought these heroes have better matchups. One thing I will say is that I actually really wanted someone other than Jason to have Chain. And I'll explain my reasoning, I guess, is because Jason is the developer in that group of 4 devs who've had the most experience on these Monarch heroes. Like, he was the main influential designer on Monarch. That's been stated that this was kind of his set that he really took the reins on, under James White. So Jason has a lot of experience with these heroes. I was really hoping that we might only see him take, like, maybe Livia, for instance. I really liked what he did with Livia. Unfortunately, again, just to my point earlier, we only got one match to see it, and it kind of fell a little bit flat against Dorinthia. Unfortunately, like, some variance there, which I know people say Livia's a variance hero, but even just like the draws that came from Jason's side, some of the ways that Newson's draws came in, like, it just was a variance matchup.
Bolton too, high variance.
Yeah, Bolton.
Like, I mean, Jason just got screwed, or sorry, Jacob got screwed on that.
Yeah, just like drew no charge cards 2 turns in a row, which, having played a fair bit of Bolton, like, can happen, but and is, I guess, maybe a deeper thing about Monarch that we might not get into today, but I think we should talk about at some point. And we've kind of, we have talked about in the past, but maybe we should dive deeper on just why this format has a higher variance than the formats before it, with Welcome to Wraith and Arcane Rising and Crucible. But I was really hoping that...
So.
Yeah, exactly right. So I was hoping that someone else might pick up the Chain, just so we could see Jason maybe play some of the heroes from the earlier sets, that he's had time and been exposed to, and then maybe in that regard we see some of the devs who maybe like a Newson who had maybe been around and tested a bit of Monarch, had got to pick up on those heroes, because I believe Newson he had Dorinthia, Katsu, and
you're asking the wrong.
Yeah,
person.
I can't remember.
That is a
Azalea.
That I do not have. Yeah.
So he had 2 Welcome to Wraith and one Arcane Rising hero. So yeah, I just would have maybe liked to see a bit of a mix up. I think we might have seen something a bit different. At least that would be my hope. But yeah, overall, look, I liked it. I loved the idea of the draft. I thought that was so cool. Like, I thought it was a really enticing way to do it, for them to draft the heroes. Maybe I would have done the pick orders, like the pick structure, a little bit differently, maybe. But overall, like, I thought it was cool. I think another kind of observation for me was that you do see that the depth of this game is so big that even the devs have, like, their preferred heroes and the heroes they feel a lot more comfortable on and heroes they feel a lot less comfortable on. You saw that across, like, the deck building, but also across, like, the way that these were played out in the games. Like, these games weren't perfect, as it never will be in Flesh and Blood, because there's so many lines to take and consider. You could rewind the game 100 times and find new lines. So, but you saw Newson take up his favored sort of Katsu that he's had the most experience with. And then on the flip side of that, from an Azalea side, a really core kind of aggressive Azalea that probably plays more to his playstyle, necessarily or less, I guess, more so than maybe like what could have been the best Azalea list that the devs might have knocking around in their cabinet. So
yes, but I do want to interject here, because, like, if say like a dev was watching this or something, my opinion is very much not so that the dev should give us the best list. I've heard this on other mediums where people are like, why doesn't everybody just share information? We all just play the best list and then we all get better together. Because that would suck. It would be so boring. Like if you play like a game like Magic or Hearthstone, like and you have like you're late into a format and there's like the best deck, it sucks. Like the best thing about Flesh and Blood is that you can innovate and you can get an edge on other players, not by just having micro skill, but you can kind of have a macro end in the deck building and get a massive edge. And I think that's really cool. And I don't think the dev should be giving us the best list. I just like my only issue with the list outside of Chain were just like none of them beat Chain. Like they all suck in Chain, kind of, right? Like I just don't think any of those lists are over 50% against a Chain player, but maybe like just no deck or hero in existence is over 50% against Chain, which maybe it's going a little bit too far, but that's where I was. So I don't want them to give us the best Azalea list. Maybe Azalea, right? Because we're getting a new Ranger and Azalea has just been dogged on for years. But yeah, I don't know. We're going down too much rabbit hole. I just want to say the whole thing was like actually absolutely a total success. Like we're talking about, we got like the Savage Lands. We're gonna get these like random things, which were super impactful in the format. Funny enough,
Yeah,
but like this was this full scale, like full on production planned. Like you've got all your devs, you've got all the heroes. It's got a weekly schedule. It's uploading. So, I mean, it was a massive success. Like, I think that this was like a step forward in the right direction and an initiative that the studio and the developers didn't have to take, but they did. And it's like for our benefit. And I think that was really cool. And I want to see more of that. And I was really happy with them doing that. But yeah, I mean, I think that the most sour part of anything in like 2021 it just is it's just Chain, and when it comes to Flesh and Blood, because right now it's just funny to see it dominate Devastation. It dominates our current format. It's going to dominate everything until Tails comes out, and then maybe until the dude gets banned. It's just a really good deck, man. I don't know.
It's interesting though. Like if you look back at the final, like it is, as you said, pretty representative of a little bit of, well, not even a little bit, like how this format has kind of changed from a Crucible format in terms of the play structure of the game to a degree, and it is a reasonable size shift. But Carroll could have easily, been on the other side of that and won that game. His deck was pretty aggressive. I think it was. You just said like none of these decks were built to beat Chain. I actually think Carroll's deck could have had a pretty good shot at it. Like he had a reasonable sort of hero build that could have attacked into it. So I don't think that's necessarily true. But also some of these decks we didn't get to see. Like Chain played 4 matches, so there's 7 other decks there for it to play. I just think the way it lined up and with who played what hero, maybe we didn't get to see all sides of what we could have. But I do agree with you also that I wouldn't want to see the best list being rolled out. Like the devs put in, it's their job. They put in hundreds of hours of stress testing and play testing on these heroes, decks, and cards. Like presumably they know at least most of the best list. So I don't want to see that. Like
what's funny is, so I played some video games like competitively for like the past like a few years ago, right? And in those games, like the devs, they would develop a game and the devs would play the game. The devs would be good at the game, right? Or whatever. They'd have like a playtest set of devs. But the game would eventually always break in some way, shape, or form because there was something that they hadn't really gotten to. And they really weren't that good. It would take about 1 week of like closed beta testing or 1 week after launch. And then like, people that would go on to be professional players would just, destroy the devs. And it wasn't close. Flesh and Blood, that's not true. The devs are, in my mind, and I've played them, and I had the misconception that all devs were potatoes when I came from like FPS gaming. So I played them. I went to New Zealand, played them. I think Jason Chung is like probably the best Flesh and Blood player in the game. And like all the devs are just incredibly good. And the stuff, like I remember when we had thought we had broke the format with Drone. And for all intents and purposes, like that did break Welcome to Wraith format. They had a deck that was much better than it. And they knew about it. And so I think that, they actually like a lot of people in like who don't know that team will underestimate them and think like, oh, they didn't know that Chain. They didn't know this could happen. Probably not. Do they know the extent? I don't know. But it's for a few months while we were, staying on this deck and, been playing it, I was like, okay, when will we innovate? When will we find something that beats it? Like how long does it take? How many groups of people can consistently fail? And it's been close to a long enough time where I'm like, I don't know if it's there. It's been a while.
I'm still unsure, still on the fence. But I just want to say that's one count for drone or Katsu control. So that's a drone count for anyone watching at home.
I said that's a deadly drinking game.
That's a deadly drinking game. Shout out to Taylor for that one.
You've also what happens.
Brendan's also given his opinion on the question of what if we pulled all of our resources together. So there we go.
Yes, it sucks.
Anyway, Brendan, any kind of final thoughts on Dev-astation? Look, I guess my final thoughts, I'll share them first, is I like this format. I like that for the majority, there's certainly things I didn't like, as I said, about the way the heroes were played into each other, the fact we only saw certain heroes a couple of times. We saw Jacob very minimally in this, unfortunately, because of the fact that he lost his 3 matches. But yeah, I would like to see maybe a slightly different format for the heroes. Maybe it's like almost like pool play. I know that's a lot of videos and it's a lot of things for LSS to do, so they kind of have to weigh up the content they're producing and the devs' time, considering their job is not playing on camera. But I think could be something to explore. I think the final that we saw, ended up being representative of our current format with the new heroes. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing for just the growth of the game, though, for people to see these heroes. I think what needs to happen next is probably not get stuck in this format for too long. And I think that LSS probably have a responsibility to, with the content they put out, really make sure they're balancing to not influence the format too heavily, but also, I guess, keep a duty of care of the format as well. So
yeah, I have so many things that I want to ask you that I feel like I shouldn't ask you. But like, what if this is just the evolution? Because I don't know. When are you going to be comfortable talking about this being a higher variance format? Is it after the calling? Is that when we should wait? Is like when we kind of give a breakdown of like what makes this format way different than others and why the kind of skill level has not stayed the same?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is true. Like, I freely admit that this is a higher variance format than what we saw. I mean, especially from Welcome to Wraith, Arcane Rising. But I guess I'm just not as comfortable to say it 100% yet, because I feel like I just need a little bit more time with some of these heroes.
Nail in the coffin.
Yeah, I mean, I believe it, but I also want to disprove my hypothesis, right? Like, I'm actively out there and trying to disprove this.
Yeah, true. He is, because he doesn't have Road to Nationals. He literally is just running crap decks into us all the time. But,
crap decks.
Hey, but like, what do you think? What if this is just the evolution of Flesh and Blood? Because like, I know there was actually people that would complain back in like Welcome to Wraith and Arcane Rising about like some of these more advanced concepts being skillful. Too skillful and like not good for beginners, right? Like pitch tracking and like having kind of multiple game plans, like all this kind of stuff that you don't really, as you draw your 4 cards every turn, they're not immediately clear. And people would actually complain. They'd be like, yeah, this isn't beginner friendly. Like, how can I give this to my friend when I have to tell them all these advanced concepts? And it's like, my argument back was like, you don't need those. Like, you don't need those to go win an F&M, right? Like, those are an option for you if you want to use them to try to gain an edge, but they're not needed to play the game. But what if this is just the evolution of Flesh and Blood, like a more, like a more friendly, this would probably line up somewhere on quote unquote fun for most of the population. If Shane becomes like if Shane or maybe Dash, I'll throw some whatever's in there so it doesn't sound like my opinion is already settled. But like, what if one deck becomes like 70-80% of the meta? Yeah, I mean, it's just generally like that's pretty unhealthy, and if it's super dominant, like that's bad.
Yeah.
But like, what if like higher variance, more crazy stuff, faster games? It's just the evolution of Flesh and Blood, and like that's just where we're gonna be. Like, we played this old dirty format. Oh God, like I'm selling myself in this crap idea. We play this old dirty format, and now we're speeding up, and like things are more. There's maximum velocities. There's rift binds off the top. Like there's all this good stuff, and you can just win games, with your cool decks and your cool heroes. What if that's the evolution of Flesh and Blood, Hayden?
There's a lot to unpack there. Just a very simple question. I think if that is truly what Flesh and Blood ends up becoming, I'd be a little bit disappointed. I think. I think in general, like I trust and I'm happy with what LSS have done so far. I don't think that the format is super unhealthy to the point that I don't want to play this game or anything like that. I don't. There's if I compare it to other games I've played, like say Magic, for instance, there was formats where I just straight up, I've said it, where I've just walked away from the game because I've just gone like, this is actually inherently, there are cards in this, there are interactions that are just purely broken, that make this game unfun to play. I actually still personally, I mean, I can't count. I've probably played, hundreds of games into 3 or 4 of the top heroes in the meta right now. And I still don't find it unfun to do that because I still find new play patterns to come across. I still find new ways to play the game.
It's nothing like Magic, right? Or
No,
because like,
or even other games.
But there are people that literally play games for those kind of decks. Like, there's a guy in my locals who he just loves Living End. He literally stopped playing Magic and just came back to play Living End. Like, and that deck is potato brain. Like, it is, you don't do anything. You just cast your rhinos for no resources. But like, that's fun. That's fun to some people. And like, we have to appreciate that. Where sometimes it's more fun to people to do unfair things that are non-interactive than your friend Dan McKay. Like, Dan McKay doesn't like to do interactive things. He likes to not. Yeah, he likes to win in BS ways. Like, that's a perfect example. It's even high-level players who like uninteractive games.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know if he likes them on like an aggregate where he likes.
Oh, he definitely does.
Them, but he definitely likes to be on the other side. Yeah.
Yeah. No, look, yes. If I hope that I think we've taken a big step from Crucible to Monarch in terms of some of the gameplay changes and the way that Flesh and Blood works. I hope that it's more of a set impact and not a direction of the game. For now, I'm like definitely giving the benefit to LSS and to the devs that this is Monarch related. This isn't game-changing aspects for the future. I do have like some concerns, obviously, because we don't have rotation. These will stay in the pool. But, you saw cards from Crucible become relevant that weren't relevant with Welcome to Wraith and Arcane Rising.
It's not a card, right? Like, the thing about this format right now is like, it's not a card. It's like,
never a card.
It always, everything is existing. Well, I mean, obviously it's very meta dependent. Like, your meta is shaping what deck you're able to play and what deck is successful. Maybe Shane isn't bound by those rules, but like any kind of like, I don't know, you can't even call it an issue, but like, this is all printed. All of these are printed on the hero. They're not on the card. So if you take away the hero, like, everything changes. So I feel like we could go back or forward or whatever anytime we want to,
which is
very easily.
Which is why like they have the Living Legend status and why they made these updates that we talked about the other week have been made. I firmly believe that's why these have been made, is to look for the health of the game long term, which I'm fine with. You know what, if it does end up that maybe they made a mistake on some hero and that hero then becomes Living Legend, fine. We go back to something else. And then we look to maybe another hero. The meta changes, and I'm perfectly fine with that. And I think in the meantime, if that happens, I don't feel like I'm not enjoying the game. This is Classic Constructed I'm talking about. I mean, Blitz is Blitz. I actually think that the health of the Blitz format right now is pretty reasonable, which is funny to say. Although maybe that's just because I'm playing Kano week in, week out.
It's more interactive than a lot of Classic Constructed games. And you guys can pull out your pitchforks and come at me for that, but like, that's a fact. At least in like chain mirrors and like aggro, like hardcore aggro mirrors, like general Blitz games seem to have lower variants and more interactive.
Yeah, I mean, neither of us have a problem with Ira, right? Which is, I think that hero is actively healthy for the Blitz format. So, like, I know some people don't think that and don't like playing against Ira or don't want to see Ira or, but whatever, is what it is.
I don't think it's, well, it's not Ira. I don't think the Flick Flack is, well, it's because of Ira, of course. So if you take away Ira, Flick Flack is less good because Katsu's hero ability is not as good. But that card is not healthy in my opinion because it limits a lot of creativity. But yeah, I mean, the Blitz format I think is in a decent spot right now, and then we'll see where Classic Constructed goes. It's always kind of that's all I have to say.
I guess the last thing I would say is that there is other powerful tools like sitting there. I mean, I look at Kano and I look through like Kano's card pool and I look through what's available there and I go, there is powerful tools here. Like, I feel the same about other heroes in this format as well. It just doesn't work in the current meta, or it doesn't fit with the current playstyle of what's happening as we've moved into Monarch. And I'm hopeful that that'll change because there's things that I think are really cool. There's gameplay patterns that I want to go back to that we played in Arcane Rising Welcome to Wraith, where pitching and pitch tracking did matter, or setting up certain in-games did matter. At the moment, it's very like, set up from a turn to turn, maybe. Yeah.
Okay. No, there's I did remember what I was gonna say is like, I almost forgot about this too. Is that what's funny is that like I mean this is pretty borderline like we're complaining, but trust me, we're not. The thing is that we're very very spoiled from playing Flesh and Blood, where I have like one uninteractive game of Flesh and Blood, and I'm like, what the heck? But I mean, there's no other card game out there that comes even close. Like even like 90% of my chain mirrors are like so much leaps and bounds better than any other card game experience. It's like not even close, and I hate that. I hate that matchup so much. And then there's like a very small amount where it's like, okay, I mean, that felt like magic. Like that felt like I just got, I just got land screwed or whatever because there's literally no decisions. And but it's so rare. Like, it's so rare. And this is still like the best game around. It's still the highest skill. Like it is still very, very, very good. But, for people like us that are playing it every day and like trying to play it at its highest level, it gets a bit frustrating sometimes when, some things that you thought you were getting edges in other ways that were as skillful and you had to put time into, and those have like kind of disappeared, and there's like not something else to replace it. Like there's no like derivative. You're like, now you have to learn how to do this. Well, it's like now you just have to learn how to draw better and maintain your anger when your opponent just rips good in front of you.
So, yeah, I mean, I think one thing is that it's just the amount of opportunity we have. Like at the moment, it's only class constructed that matters, right? Like if there's, simultaneously like pro events, there's callings happening, there's road to nationals, and you get to, heavily like, okay, well, actually, in 2 weeks' time, I get to go and play a limited calling. I get to break up my constructed season with a limited calling or something.
Oof.
Like that would be fantastic right now. I feel like that would just reinvigorate, But in saying that, like, I completely agree. I think we were really spoiled coming from a format that was like very low on variance, or at least perceived variance, I guess, in terms of the way that players were playing the game and the skills that players had. So we've come from up here to here, but we're still, we're still well above here. So, and all in all, like, I actually, I just want to reiterate to Brendan's point, like, I still super enjoy playing this game, and although there's a few changes in this format, I'm excited to see what Tails brings because, I think it'd be cool.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not burnt out, and we have a schedule that would make me burn out if it was something the gathering, that'd be for sure. But let's transition, because this week we're going to give you guys something special.
Are we?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of tech out on YouTube right now, and before Dante Delfico has a literal aneurysm with what I'm about to say, I'm not going to be giving away any secret tech. But we're going to talk about the regional metas and what you should bring and why, what you should not bring and why. Because a lot of these North American metas, unless you're a person who likes to play a certain class for a certain reason and that's what you're playing, ignore everything I'm going to say. But if you want to win, you can take a lot of information that has been, publicly available, and you can make very, very educated guesses on what you can expect to play on the weekend and drastically tune your deck, if not change your deck, and see, I think, a significant higher margin of success.
Yeah, so I think just to I think that's really important. I think you can win with anything here, but to that, I think it's you're looking to give yourself margins. You're looking to give yourself percentages. That's what, being really abreast of the meta it can give you.
Yep. So I'm gonna go ahead and start with North America. I know that Canada is a bit delayed on, I think, a lot of the road to nationals. There might be some, but none that I know of are actually a little bit longer. So let's talk about America. So America, you have we're going to go through some history. So America, you have week one. Week one, you expect a bunch of crazy stuff. You literally have to prepare for every deck. But you can reasonably extrapolate that there's going to be people trying to fatigue you. There's going to be people playing snag. Wasn't a secret. We all knew about it. And there was going to be, aggro decks and pet decks. And I expect there to be a lot of Prism. So week one, you could literally bring anything. Chain was still probably the best pick if you knew you were doing into control. But that being said, that was kind of bring your best hero. You can win, no problem. Week two. So week two, this is where it got interesting. We have data. Matt Rogers wins on Dash, and that is North America's, big bugle horn to hop on Dash. So how fast a player is going to get on Dash? The answer is very fast. So going into week two, Bravo was a very, very bad pick, in my opinion. I know there's going to be some Bravo purists, and this is nothing against your hero because I played your hero. And you say, someone asked me, Brendan, why would you play Bravo if you know there's going to be Dash and you know it's a bad pick? Well, I didn't expect how fast people would net deck Matt Rogers. I thought that there would be a few people and I could beat them because I had a more aggressive Bravo strategy. I knew that to beat Dash, I had to employ 0 skill and literally just had to outdraw them and do a lot of damage. And that was it. And I was okay with that. I'll roll the 40% dice and try to win, or 30% or whatever it is. That's fine. I was ready to take that because I'm going to switch up and play a different hero. But yeah, Bravo was bad. Week three, Dash was everywhere. Turns out it was a lot more than I expected. And then Dash was actually pretty successful that week. And who was also successful? Chain. Chain was very successful, and these chains have stopped losing to fatigue as much as they did before. So if you're planning to, dirtle around and try to fatigue some chains, yeah, you might beat some in Swiss, but pretty unlikely to win the event, in my opinion. I think it's super important to note as well Prism's conversion rates have been made public on a spreadsheet, so people can see how bad it is to bring that hero statistically if you're going to try to win an event. Does that mean the hero is bad and can't win? Absolutely not. Definitely do I think the hero is pretty decently strong? Yes, I do. But if there's people that are kind of like net decking for their way to get success and trying to use information available online to get edges, they're probably not going to be picking up Prism. It looks really, really badly from the statistics. That being said, there is also Bolton. Bolton saw a ridiculous amount of kind of statistical success in terms of like the amount of conversions on a percentage basis. On numbers, not so much, but Bolton does look like it statistically it is the dark horse, so you can see a lot of people picking up that deck. And that deck is pretty good into mech as well, so I do expect to see more Bolton. But going into week 3, so if we take all of that week 2 data and we just kind of jumble it up in a bunch of nuance and come up with an opinion, I think that you don't want to be bringing Bravo to week 3. Like, that's going to be rough. You do not want to be bringing not Katsu Control. Katsu Control, the nail was in that coffin in week 2. If you're winning Katsu Control, your meta must be kind of like, it shouldn't win. Like, Katsu Control should not be Dash. It should not be Chain. It should not be like, I think even Bravo. I mean, I guess it has an okay matchup into Bravo. But yeah, it's just a really, really tough deck, and I think it really struggles into Prism as well. I think we're finally going to lay down Katsu Control to rest. So no Katsu Control, but if you're a Katsu player, definitely see if your Katsu aggro deck, because in my opinion, that is the second best deck in the format. You have a very good matchup into Mech. You have a decent matchup into Bravo, which there shouldn't be much of, and you have a decent matchup into Chain. And you don't hear the word decent matchup in Chain from my mouth ever. So definitely Katsu Control is going to be a good deck for week 3. Obviously, Shane, great deck for week 3.
Katsu aggro.
Sorry, Katsu aggro. Yeah, I'm tricking you all. Yeah, Katsu aggro, definitely not Katsu Control. And then Shane is a great deck for week 3. You can just look at the data. Don't even need to hear me talk about if I think it's broken or not. Chain and then Dash. If you think you can win with Dash, if you think you're going to beat Chains with Dash, and if you think Dash is actually a good pick into this meta, go for it. Statistically, it's probably going to convert. It's a very annoying strategy to play against. There's sometimes it depends on the deck. There's not a lot of interaction an opponent can do to stop you from getting out your items if you get them early. And I don't know. It depends if we go into an aggro format or a controlling format. I assume that it'll be a much more aggro format in week 3, and then most people will be off fatigue control strategies. So my top picks for week 3: Chain. Sorry, Dante. Sorry, I'm going to say it. It's obvious. Aggro Katsu. Maybe Mech, Prism, who knows? Like, or Bolton. Mech, Prism, Bolton, they'll kind of land here where they're okay.
My top 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah, I mean, they're all the same over there. They're all the same down there. I mean, it's just whatever you're comfortable with at that point. I don't think any of them get massive edges. But in my opinion, that's what the North American meta looks like. And I do recommend, mostly in the case if you've been on Bravo, you felt like you got some tough beats in week 2. The beats are going to get tougher in week 3. And Katsu Control, I've been telling you guys for months to get off that deck, so take a hint. All right, Hayden, up to you. Tell us about the NZ APAC, and just give me your thoughts on the monologue.
Yeah, I can do that. Thoughts on monologue. One thing I did want to say is I actually think we talked about the data through the first 2 weeks of Road to Nationals in the Arsenal Pass pod this week. And one of the things that I didn't say at the time, but just have thought about and think is true, is I think Bolton is massively overperforming right now. I mean, you could say that's obvious because it's overperforming its conversion rate in terms of it has a really high conversion rate. It's doing well, but I actually think if you look at what that means, I actually think it means it's overperforming the numbers right now. I think if you look at the meta that it's playing into, yeah, it has some good matchups. But I do think I have to go back to the numbers, but I think like a 25% conversion or something like that. In terms of,
really good. It
was really high, and I expect to see that drop massively. I think the players that were playing it knew what they were doing. They knew how to target the meta. They had lists that were, I guess, ready for that meta. They probably got some favorable matchups. They probably didn't play against decks they didn't want to play against. So yeah, I think there's a few things to be careful with Bolton there. I agree with you on the North American meta. I think from what we've seen from the event so far, that would be a pretty clear extrapolation to make for week 3 and week 4. To be honest, I'd probably roll 3 and 4 together. I think we're going to see some pretty massive similarities there.
Yeah, week 4, I expect more chains than in week 3. I think that week 3, we're still going to have this like residual dash wave, and then we'll all collectively
if you look at
week to the truth.
Week 2, I mean, there was a reasonable amount of dash, but it didn't perform massively well in terms of top eights. It was okay.
Yeah, it wasn't not massively well. Yeah, I mean, so that's what I think is like I don't think the dash performed that well. Like that's why it's in the 3, 4, 5, 6 range. It's like I actually don't think the deck is well positioned. I'm not gonna say the deck is bad, but like I don't think it's fantastically positioned. I don't understand. Like, did all the aggro Katsu people just unsleeve their decks? Like, what happened?
Yeah,
It's super confusing. And then, but anyway, yeah, like I think that there will be like a residual wave, not from like, hey, we're looking at the statistical data on Dash and we decided to play Dash because of that. But it's like, oh, there's this really popular YouTube video on Arsenal Pass where like someone explains this deck and how to play it, and it looks really good, and it's a player that I respect, so I'm gonna play that.
Yeah.
And like I think that's, and I'm not saying that in a negative way, but like I think that's influencing most of the Dash. And then we talked about this on the pod a little bit, but I'm gonna say real quick, like Dash is a hero that people want to go back to. Dash is everybody's like, Crucible, it was a huge bully. So Dash is people's like, oh god, it's like their safe space. They want to go back to Dash. They want to go back to putting those items out and swinging for 16 and playing a slow game, and like it's a fun, like it's a nice deck, right? So when you come into Monarch and then you gotta just depressively unsleeve your Dash deck week 1, you're like, this is never gonna work. There's Prism, there's Bolton, there's Chain. And then some man comes to you and he's like, I have the truth. I won with Dash. You're like, yes, finally. I can come back. I can play my deck.
The prophecy.
I feel like that's where a lot of people are. They're like, finally, I can get off these crappy heroes that I don't want to play, and I can go back to my true hero. I can go back to Dash. So I think it's where we are.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think you'll see more Dash this week because, it just hadn't had the time to permeate. I think regionally, it sounded like maybe you saw a bit more at your event than others did.
Texas, big Matt Rogers
fan.
I've been telling Matt for ages. Dude would be signing babies if he came to Texas. There'd be people following his car. It'd be ridiculous.
Whereas it sounds like in Europe and other parts of North America, and especially in APAC, that less so with the Dash.
Much less.
But I think this weekend you probably see a bit more. If I move over to, I guess, regionality wise, look at the big event that happened in New Zealand this past weekend. A lot of Bravo, a reasonable amount of Dash, quite a bit of Prism as well, as it turns out, and yeah, Chain. Those are like the three kind of well played decks. Katsu control there had really dropped off from what it sounds like. A lot less of that than we'd seen in previous weeks. And, still not much Katsu aggro. I think that is kind of a little bit of a sleeper of the format right now. I guess there's like mid-range aggro decks. And it turns out like a bit of Bolton showed up as well in New Zealand. I think quite a reasonable amount of Bolton actually, and seemed to do, okay. So Australia, I think Bravo. I mean, it's really hard to say in Australia right now because we're not having the Road to Nationals events. It's only happening in smaller centres who aren't impacted by the current lockdowns. So I think there was 2 over the weekend. They were both in smaller states. I think they were like 20 people there or thereabouts. Bravo did well. There's only one in Asia so far. Very similar by the looks of it.
Dorinthia,
Dorinthia there showing up a bit, but not.
Where in Asia was it?
I think it was Hong Kong. I think it was Hong Kong. Yeah, it was a Chain versus Katsu final, I believe, with Katsu.
There's a lot of Chain over there. It's funny.
Give me a second. Chain win.
Yeah. It's not like Hong Kong and Singapore are more online with our meta. Their deck building is much different, but usually their meta is quite similar in terms of like the decks you see. You go to Taiwan and like it's way different. This is like Taiwan was the only other competitive region outside of like US, New Zealand, back in Welcome to Wraith Arcade Rising, and we would get their list, and it was like always Dorinthia and Katsu mid-range. Yeah. And I feel like I've only seen like Dorinthia be successful over there and like Katsu mid-range since.
Yeah, I mean, one of the only 2 nations to have a nationals last year, obviously New Zealand and Taiwan. So, yeah. Anyway, that's kind of my thoughts. We should move through, Brendan. Just want to, unless there's anything else you want to talk about meta-wise, you've kind of said your picks. I guess if I was to say, 3 decks I might take, 2 or 3 heroes I might take this week, depending on, again, regional meta, but I'm probably more thinking about North American meta. I think, Chain, as you said, is a good pick. I agree with aggro Katsu. I think that's a good pick to play into, especially if there's, I guess, less. Actually, I like playing into Bravo with that deck. I was just thinking if there's any matchups I don't really want to play against. Not overly, to be honest. Like I think I would happily take that in. Prism. Okay, I don't want to play into Prism with that deck ideally. So if Prisms are kind of on the decline, whereas if there's a lot of Prisms around, I probably still wouldn't take that deck. I might I guess look at a sleeper deck for third place. I might look at something like a brute or we have to see. Anyway, should we move on, Brennan, to talk about something I wanted to just chat about before we wrapped up, which is it's just coverage for the calling. So calling is now what 3 and a bit weeks away, 4 weeks away. Yeah, 4 weeks away.
Stressful when you say it like that.
It's stressful for you. I'm just sitting there. It doesn't bother me. I'm just waiting to watch. So yeah, I want to talk a little bit about the coverage because I'm excited to, obviously watch this event. I won't be there in person, so I'll be following along for the weekend while it's happening. We saw from the Auckland calling we had coverage, but now this time this is a Channel Fireball event. So I think we're going to see the level of coverage improve, and that's not a knock against what LSS did in Auckland. Channel 5 will just have the facilities, they have the production values to be able to do that because of who they are as a company. It's in Vegas, so I think this is going to be a real statement for the game. I think the coverage is going to be a focus. We know that, two of the guys from CFB,
DM Armada and Red Zone are
they're going to be doing the commentary. So yeah, I think I guess what I'm interested to see, I really want to see, I guess, a move on from what we saw in Auckland. I think the fact that we got gameplay, we got some really good commentary from an expert commentary as well from the likes of Callum and Karen and even Carol jumping in at points was fantastic. I'm really hoping that we start to see some of that, I guess, like filler time really be used with, I guess, the production quality that comes with hopefully the Vegas calling. I'd really like to see like some, I guess, like dual table matches, like maybe they're able to record a match, show that match in between.
We have instead of time locking beat, we have some Carrion Husk Flesh and Blood here. We're going into the round 2. I'm just kidding. But yeah, I mean, they have interviews, they have so many things. Yeah. And I know they've reached out to certain players that are not myself because I'm just a Flesh and Blood writer about like being like a bounty player and doing interviews and stuff like that. So we'll see where that goes. The only person I know they did talk to did turn it down to focus more on like actually trying to win the event. But we'll see. I think that we're going to see a lot of stuff we saw from Magic GPs, and Magic GP coverage is good.
It is good.
As much as you may dislike the game, like the coverage is fantastic. In particular, I hope that they do eventually do GP Richmond 2008 Legacy GP Reed Duke was my favorite coverage ever done. They followed a professional player, Reed Duke, through the entire thing, and they actually mic'd them up and just did soft commentary over the side. It was, I mean, it's by far most people's favorite GP ever to watch, and it was the best. I mean, I don't think you can do it every time,
no,
but it was absolutely amazing, and I hope that they do it one day in Flesh and Blood because that was really, it was just fantastic to watch as a fan.
I think as a competitive level player and someone who follows the game and follows the personalities, I think I like that format. I don't think you could even do it more than once a year, to be honest. I think it's very, very polarizing. Like a lot of people are just gonna, especially people coming into the game, are just gonna see that and be like, "What the hell is this? Like, what?" And it's gonna turn them off immediately. So I think you gotta be really careful.
That's funny. That's actually how I learned Legacy, was watching that GP. I actually didn't know anything about Legacy, and it was like too.
You should have.
It was too daunting. Yeah, it was too. Actually, that's my favorite format. It was too daunting for me to watch like all these different decks and like so many cards. So just watching Gracious Control, getting comfortable with those cards and the opponents, like I was able to essentially learn the format. But yeah, I mean, Legacy is my favorite format, so eat it. It's the most interactive format.
Dude. Anyway, of course you're a Gracious player. I'm surprised. Delving. Anyway, Brainstorm. Count spells.
Yeah, you gotta filter. Like, why this anti-variance, bro?
Wow.
I don't know.
Anyway. Yeah, so I'm excited to see what happens to the coverage. I'm hoping, that I think we are going to see like a really high level of production come out of this, similar to what you get with the GPs for Magic. Maybe even, to be honest, maybe even a step above because of just the ease it is to. I think it's a bit easier to follow Flesh and Blood on camera than it is to follow Magic, for instance, on camera, just because of the simplicity of the board state. You start full, then work your way down. So everything is kind of happening from turn 1. It's really easy to explain as well. Simple combat structure. So yeah, I just can't wait to actually get to watch this when it happens. I think it's going to be, not play, but watch. But it's going to be a signpost of, I think, what we're going to see for the future of coverage. I think, again, LSS started really well with what they did in Auckland, and this is just going to be the iteration of that with some of that. Because the problem with that was like the downtime in between games, right? You watch a game, it's like, oh, there's a really quick game, 5 minutes. What am I doing for these 25 minutes? Play
25
interviews.
minutes? You mean hour and a half?
Yeah. Well, having
Some.
I was at the venue, and they did have a software problem. I think between rounds 2 and 3, which was
I mean, we commentated the Blitz one where they had a camera overheating problem in the finals.
Well, that was the first ever.
I know. Obviously, we're dogging on like. Trust me, I've said it a million times. Like, we were lucky to get any footage because that was amazing. But yeah, I mean, I agree with you. CFB will be probably kind of setting the bar really high, and I really enjoy the production value. I think it's going to be a great event. I think that it's going to be historical. If you can go, you should go. If you can't go, it's too bad for you, Hayden. You'll go to the next one. 2022, though, that's going to be the real season. Hayden will be, he did confirm with me this morning that he is moving out to America. So very exciting stuff coming from Hayden. You'll see him soon stateside with that little blonde hair.
Yeah, I was going to say, if anything you've learned about Brendan in the past 5 months is that Brendan just says things for the sake of saying them. So take that as you will. Anyway, yep. Brendan, we're coming up on 46 minutes here. We've played a long back and forth here.
God, it's so cheesy when you do like that. So active player turn 0, 1 additional turn. It's time around.